All right, if we could go ahead and sit down so we can get started.
I'm actually gay, red flag right there. I know it's very how are you?
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the 2018-19 student tuition and fee hearings. My name is Ken Klein. I'm the Associate Vice President for Budget and Planning. I also will serve as the hearing officer today, and I'm also a non-voting member on the Executive Budget Committee. So at the hearing today, areas requesting a change in their existing student fees will present the proposal to the Executive Budget Committee. Once their presentation is complete, the Executive Budget Committee members will be given the opportunity to ask questions. Once those questions are complete, time will be given for individuals who wish to provide comments on the fee proposals. So if you do wish to testify or present comments, please make sure that you sign up in the table in the back. If you sign up ahead of time, I'll call your name, and then you can come to the microphone and present your comments, and then wait here in case members of the Executive Budget Committee have any questions for you. So after the hearing, the Executive Budget Committee will meet and develop a recommendation for the President. The President will then determine a recommendation to submit to the State Board of Education, and the State Board of Education will consider tuition and fees at their April 18th meeting. So we do have a slight change in schedule. We'll start with tuition, and then we're going to move on to the Campus Recreation Center, and then we'll go through the rest of the schedule. We also have some informational presentations today that aren't part of the hearings. So dining services, parking and transportation, and housing would like to present their fees today, and so we've given them an opportunity to do so. So I know we don't have microphones, so hopefully you'll hear, but I'll ask the members of the Executive Budget Committee to go ahead and introduce themselves, and then we'll start with Mark Heil will present tuition. So let's start over here.
I'm Daniel Gold. I'm the president of the Professional Staff Association here at Boise State.
Michael Vasquez, president of the Association of Classified Employees.
Kevin Satterley, chief operating officer.
Mark Rudin, research.
Gabe Payne, vice president for ASBSU.
Mark Heil, Chief Financial Officer.
Jenna Hockersmith, Student Activity Fee Advisory Board.
Leslie Webb, Student Affairs and Enrollment Management.
Susan George, President of ASBSU.
Gordy Shim, provost.
Nicole Kreiner, Student Activity Fee Advisory Board. Laura Simic, Advancement.
So this chart is a visual of the tuition model that we have at Boise State. This is last year's schedule that has the full-time plateau, if you will, from 12 credit hours to 15 credit hours. We had been on a path to migrate from a full-time model to a full linear model that would not have a flat plateau on it. Rather, it would be a continuous slope upward and to the right. This would have been the last year in that transition. But there's some additional research that's come out over the last couple of years that suggests a full-time model is more supportive of four-year graduation rates. So as opposed to complete that transition to a full linear model, we're actually retrenching into a more traditional full-time plateau that looks something like this, where we're expanding the plateau to start at 11 hours and extend the back end of it to 16 hours. So it used to be there was the credit overload charge that started at the 16th credit hour. Now that doesn't start until the 17th credit hour, which we think strategically makes a little bit more sense with our goals of the four-year graduation rates. And certainly there's some classes that require labs where there's several semesters that you would definitely run into that overload charge at the 16th credit hour. We're providing a little bit of relief by kicking that out to 17 instead of 16. So the model that you see here does show about a 5% increase in the tuition rate. That is primarily going to be used to support some pay increases for faculty and staff that was not funded by the state, as well as provide funding for some inflationary and replacement costs for the university. Any questions? Okay.
So Alexa Val, would you like to provide comments?
Good afternoon. My name is Alexa. I've been a student here since 2015 and I'm about to graduate next semester. So I'm happy to have this opportunity. I'm studying business, and in the business building we're talking a lot about sustainability, which usually it's become a buzzword, and it usually has the connotation of a company's philanthropic efforts to create goodwill and a long-term strategic advantage and build legitimate operations. However, in my personal life, it's meant survival. I don't have to look up statistics to tell you that housing costs are rising, car insurance, don't even get me started about healthcare, even groceries. I saw a bag of hash browns go from $1.50 to $2.88. During this time over 2017, both my husband and I have had a $1 wage increase per hour, which was nice. However, the Bureau of Labor Statistics says that real average hourly earnings for all employees decreased by 0.2% from December to January. And this is seasonally adjusted. It's attributed to the fact that we've had a 0.3% increase in average hourly earnings, but it's been offset by a 0.5% increase in the consumer price index for all urban consumers. Real people feel this effect, and those real people are the students on your campus. The university is a business. I know it's a nonprofit, but it is business. It provides services and a single piece of paper to its customers, the students. And with raising tuition costs, you are changing the value proposition. For me, raising tuition costs to about $300 per credit, I want to know what I'm getting out of it. New rec equipment that has showed up in the past year, fancier dorm rooms for freshmen, and other indulgent spending does not increase my future earning potential. It doesn't increase the value proposition that you're giving me. It affects all aspects of my life. Today I spent my time gathering my emotions and thoughts for this hearing rather than studying for an exam. I feel like the value in Boise State should be the experiences that I have. I have been denied work study because I have earned private scholarship to cover my tuition, but I still was not able to work as a data analyst in the Boise Albertsons library here because I was ineligible. And I feel that to me is really upsetting. As the costs increase, I understand that. Justifying covering those costs I'm completely fine with, but I have not seen the most worthy costs being covered. For example, I will refrain from giving the name, but there's a professor I know who moved 2 or 3 states away from their spouse. They have taught here for about a year and a half. Their performance has continually increased, and students prefer that class, that section, over other professors in the course. And they still talk to me about how hard it is to make a budget work. They are in that boat with me, and they take the bus to school every day. So I feel that covering things like the most important teachers that impart their knowledge to us is going to be a priority for me with tuition hikes, and I don't really feel that standing for increasing the value of a student's recreation rather than their education and their experiences, is going to hold well with the students here at Boise State. Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions for Alexa? Great, thank you. So next we're going to have Luke Jones present the campus recreation fee.
How's everybody doing? Good. Awesome. Thanks for letting me be here. Thanks, Alexa, was it, for sharing your concerns. I feel a little bit weird. Now I'm going to jump right up here and talk about campus recreation, but hopefully some of what I'll share with you will give you a little bit of explanation about what we've been doing as stewards with student fees, and also talk to you a little bit about why we are asking for additional fee increases. And all that is really with an eye towards being good stewards and investors with students' resources. So with that, my name is, oh, we're skipping ahead, hold on. Luke Jones. I've been the Director of Campus Recreation now for about 3 years. And want to take you through a little bit about what we've been doing, kind of the challenges and the opportunities that are before us now, and also just answer any questions that you have. So with that, I do want to highlight our mission, and I want to just underscore the piece about a engaged community that encourages student success. Absolutely, we want people to be healthy and active individuals, and that comes as a wonderful byproduct of getting plugged in with us, we hope, we believe. But you could do that at any gym. You could do that at any facility. The reason that we are doing that here as part of Student Affairs is because we're intentional about that work and what we do with those communities and reaching out to the Greek community, to off-campus, to the living learning programs and residence halls, is because we are building students who are going to be successful after graduation in terms of employment, providing opportunities for them to get to know their faculty and their staff outside of their classroom in different modalities, and build positive relationships. And we took a look at some of our GPA data, broke down our segments, our users into segments based on, you know, the all-campus GPA. We looked at our sporadic users. We looked at our moderate users to try to understand who's using us, what sorts of populations are those, and one of the things that came out is the more usage that we see in students, the GPAs are higher. And I'd love to believe that's because of campus rec, and I can't say that, and I'm not saying it's all because of that, but I think we have seen enough in our data to know that when students are connected to campus, when they're connected to each other, when they're actively engaged and participating in all the things that we offer others, that they perform better. Just to give you a little bit of idea of the scope of campus recreation, we have about 330,000 entries into our building each year, about 8,200 individual unique users, and about 1,100 entries per day during the fall and the spring. So we are a busy place on campus, and we want to use that community, again, to help students succeed academically and in their lives. And I've come up here, I think this is probably my third time, fourth if you count SAFAB, presenting and talking about why are we asking for some money. And I would just highlight our fee history and the progress we've made recently, but also underscore that in 2009, 2010, when the university decided to centralize the facility fees, that had a pretty big impact on our budget in terms of revenue streams. And so ever since then, we had to cut a lot of programs, we had to cut staff, and we've been on a path to try and get to a sustainable revenue level. And right now, you can see from that we made a little bit of progress. Last time when I came to you, I showed you the sustainability of our current budget, not changing anything, just continuing to offer the same programs and services that eventually we would go cash flow negative in fiscal year 23. Now, you might look at that and say like, oh, well, okay. The problem is we're not putting away money towards our capital plan and towards our capital expenses, which I'll talk about here in a little bit. So we put ourselves in a really dangerous position in terms of what we have available for repairs and for maintenance with our building and our equipment. So last year I came asking for $10. We received $4. So I want to say thank you, tell you a little bit about what that did for us. That increased our runway in terms of the sustainability of our budget. So again, if we change nothing, if we just look at increases in cost of staffing and utilities and those sorts of things, repairs, we've given ourselves a little bit more time. We haven't really solved the problem, but we've given ourselves more time. And with that, we were able to not affect our operating hours. So we were able to keep that the same. We continue to offer our fitness classes for free. Our outdoor program offerings actually grew, and we've been able to fill those up. We can continue to pay athletics to use their facilities. We pay them so that intramurals and club sports can have a place to practice and play on campus. We give free space out of our building to clubs and organizations on campus. And we support many of our club teams who travel all over the states, the region, to go and play competitively against other teams. We're able to support some of their travel, not all. They do a lot of fundraising, but we are able to help them in that. I'm going to come back to this phrase. I shared it with you last year. I'm a big Casey Kasem fan. It's when I grew up, it was two things, man. You kept your feet on the ground and you kept reaching for the stars. So I'm going to talk to you about what that has looked like for us in terms of keeping our feet on the ground and also to keep dreaming of ways that we can meet the needs of students on our campus as our student body continues to grow. If you haven't heard of Casey Kasem, you just Google him. Super famous back in the day. Intramurals, we were able to bolster our staff there and continue to grow the intramural program offerings. So we had a 15% growth in the number of female users for intramurals. And we've had a 6% growth overall year to year in our intramural programs. Greeks are participating at an all-time high with intramurals, and we want to continue to grow that participation. One of the things we heard a lot from students is we just don't know about all the stuff you're offering. So that continually comes up in our surveys that we do and in conversation with students. So we've tried to build some things in our lobby and along down our halls to bring awareness to the different programs that we have. Because when you first walk in, you don't necessarily know all the things we're offering in outdoor. You don't even know you have a pool. And I've talked to seniors who just discovered, oh my gosh, there's a pool back here. I didn't even know. So we're trying to do some things to really bring the entire rec center out to the lobby. So we've been able to add some communication tools to our physical space. We're able to add some safety padding by our courts, so helping people as they ram into the wall to be a little bit safer. And we were also able to, thanks with the help of Advancement and Rachel Bickerton, to get some sponsorship from Powerade to put functioning scoreboards up. We had scoreboards, but they haven't worked in years. So we actually got those, and they didn't actually cost us anything. But I want to highlight the little cage that's up there on our sprinkler systems. This was kind of an expensive project. But we had a ball that broke one of our sprinkler heads 2 years ago, flooded one of our courts, and that won't happen anymore because we've installed these super strong cages around them. So we also added some new weight equipment. We just heard a little bit about that. A lot of our weight equipment is actually original to the building in 2002. So it's actually become more expensive to maintain that equipment. And then now actually a lot of places won't even take it, so we have to pay someone to take it off of our hands. Where most rec centers are in a rotation, about 2 to 3 years, they're transitioning out their equipment because it's actually better, cheaper to do it that way, and continues to meet students' needs. So we've been able to add some in response to some of the things that our students are looking for. Olympic weightlifting platform, minor things, little smaller weights, as well as changing some of our machines. So we've been able to do that thanks to your support. We were also able to fix our aquatics roof, which has been leaking for, gosh, I don't know, probably 6-7 years. So we were able to actually get this project done. We no longer have leaking in our aquatic side, so that's really exciting. And then we're also able to put in some LED lights up above our gymnasium floors, and that project will actually pay for itself in about 1.5 years. And then we'll continue to see savings from our energy bill. So we're in a process of upgrading some of our lighting to save us money with that. 50% is the number of students who pay the full-time student fee and actually come in at least once during the academic year. And we want to know, why is it that other students aren't coming in? We know that students can benefit by being involved in our community, and I don't think we'll ever get to 100 or 90% of our students, but I know we can reach more than 50. So we actually surveyed all of our students who do not use us. We surveyed students who come in one time but don't come back. And a couple of the themes that we hear about are intimidated, don't know how or where to get started, and secondly, don't have people that are either helping them or friends that are bringing them to the rec center. So we've launched something on our webpage to help people get started. It links you to a blog. One of the things we've put up there are some orientation videos. They're just about a minute long. It helps students to know just the basics. You can walk in, get started. You don't have to wander around looking like you're lost. I shared with you the high demand for team building facilitation activities that we get in our outdoor program. So this last year we launched a team building portion of our website and formalized this program. And this year we served nearly 600 students in just team building activities. So we have dreams to build a low ropes course, which I'll share with you here in a second, but this is live and on our website. So that's been the growth of our team building program. But we still have some work to do, so this is still kind of trying to keep our feet on the ground. We've got aquatic showers that have been offline for nearly 16, 17 months now because of faulty construction. No water barrier was put in between the drywall and the tile, and so these basically need to be completely torn out and redone, and that'll cost, we think, maybe around $80,000. We're still trying to get the final price tag on that whole piece. I mentioned the flood that happened a couple years ago, but the real issue is that, again, construction-wise, there was no moisture barrier put between the concrete and the hardwood floors, and so we've had water damage now over the years that have, and I don't know how well you can see this, but that floor is actually bouncing. A hardwood floor shouldn't bounce like this, so it should remain pretty flat. I mean, I'm not a hardwood expert, but when I go out there and I bounce a ball and the ball doesn't bounce back up to me the same way, that's a problem. So a floor that should have lasted 40 years needs to be replaced. And so Campus Recreation has committed $384,000 to that project. Others around campus have as well. Operations, Central University are kicking in funds, Student Affairs, to make this project happen, and we're hoping we can do that. The total cost will be around $650,000. We are replacing our infrastructure in terms of our database system. I don't know if you've ever tried to come in and swipe your card and you can't get through right away. That's just one frustration that we have related to the system that's original to the building, and we need to upgrade that. And then we have a larger roof maintenance issue coming in probably the next 2 to 3 years, where we need to look at how will we replace or significantly upgrade the roof on our entire building. Sort of pegged it at about $500,000, but again, that's not I put it in yellow because we're still trying to feel that out. And then we want to keep dreaming. So I think in our materials that I sent to you, you saw that ideally we'd love to have a high ropes course and fundraise for that and figure out a way to have a sponsorship and actually build that. But for a low ropes course, we could get in for the cost of about 3 to 4 cardio machines. We could actually build a low ropes course. So we're just exploring where might that go. How could that help us continue to serve the needs that we see across campus with students building their teams and communities. Okay, I'm almost done. This is my last minute. So our total capital plan over the next 10 years is approximately $3.6 million. And to fund that, we would need an average of, and it's really hard for me to read that, $363,000 to put away each and every year savings towards that plan. And we're at about 130 on average over the next 10 years. So we have a deficit if we're going to do all the things that we've planned in the next 10 years to upgrade, maintain our building, our facility. We're short, and that's why we're really here asking for your support in $10 to help us keep growing with the students, to help us keep meeting needs, doing small things that make a difference for our students, but also make progress on this much larger issue, which is about our infrastructure and our capital plan. So we want to be able to do both, and I think we can do that together with you, and I ask for your support. So thank you. What questions? Thank you. Do you have for me? Yeah.
Question for you, Luke. My rough math was, what'd you say, about 3.5 million
Rough math on
on the projects that need to be,
just over the next 10 years.
how much of that comes out deferred maintenance?
Well, that's a great question. I couldn't give you an exact figure, but I would say probably a good portion of it. You know, the big projects that we're facing right now, like our floor and the bathrooms, really aren't about deferred maintenance. There are some things we've been addressing already, which are already taken care of in our pool and that infrastructure that were deferred maintenance. Some things in our air conditioning system definitely were issues around deferred maintenance. So we do see that. So there was a time period where a lot of stuff was getting put off because of budgets or otherwise that probably should have been happening. All right, cool.
Okay, so next, we're gonna move on to our facilities fees. Kevin Satterley will be presenting. That covers the capital projects and facilities fee and the campus improvement and maintenance fee. And that'll be followed by presentations on dining and parking rates.
So the first presentation that I have regarding the campus facilities fees does not have a PowerPoint to go with it. So in brief, this fee request comes down to two parts. The first part, which is the $25.70 fee, is with regard to our strategic facilities fee that supports our growth and building initiative on campus. This particular fee is for the Materials Science Research Center, which is about to break ground over where the current central receiving building is. This is the building that Micron gave the university $25 million in gift money towards. The state put in another $10 million towards, and this fee will bond the remainder of the university portion of the overall $52 million project. So essentially the first part of this fee is to support the construction of the new Material Science Research Center. The second part of this fee request is to create a fund to support the campus physical improvements and maintenance. Going back to 2005 and any time prior to that, in the state of Idaho, the universities were not allowed to charge tuition, so they charged what was called a matriculation fee. Matriculation fee prior to 2005, one of the three things that it could be spent on was maintenance and operation of the physical plant. It was the funding source by which the university would do some campus physical improvements. After 2005, the law changed and that money became tuition, and tuition quickly became part of the funding of the academic side of campus, which is great. It's needed, it's fantastic. But what it has done is that currently the university does not have a single identified funding source for campus improvement projects. The end result of that, and I'm not talking about deferred maintenance in the sense of things that just begin to fail necessarily. The state does fund some of that, but it's other campus improvement projects. For example, if we hire a new chemistry professor and that chemistry professor requires a research lab, the university has to have capital money to build the research lab, and there currently isn't a funding source for that. Great example happened just this year. In fact, happened 2 weeks ago. The state gave us some money to remodel a research lab in chemistry. And so we put together the project and built the lab, but due to increased construction costs, the state money wasn't enough to finish the lab, so we had to finish the lab without fume hoods. Well, anybody that understands a chemistry lab without a fume hood may as well be a closet, because if you cannot have a fume hood to take out the fumes from the chemicals, you cannot operate the lab, literally. So we had a several $100,000 lab the state built that we could not use. So the request came in, will the university have the money to add fume hoods to this lab? And the answer is no, we don't, because there isn't a central funding source for those types of improvements. So when the rec center comes to the university and says, we need a new floor, not necessarily as a deferred maintenance, but in order to keep it operational, the answer is no, we don't have the funding. This is an attempt to build into our current strategic fee system a funding source to do those types of improvements when the university needs it. So essentially, The capital and facilities fee request for this year has two parts: the funding of the materials research building and to create a fund for those types of campus improvements. That's it for the facilities fee presentation. Questions? So the other presentation then, I'll go ahead and move on to it. My understanding is this is informational, that it is, the Executive Budget Committee doesn't directly deal with this, but the concept was show everyone all of the types of rate increases that are incurring this year so that it can be taken into account when we talk about the student fee requests. So in two parts, starting first with transportation and parking and safety systems. So, along with our campus's growth and our continuing improvement on campus, we are having some pain points within our systems. Nobody likes to pay for parking, but everybody wants to have parking. That creates a bit of a dilemma, especially when you have what happened this year and that some people are aware of because it impacted them, and that is, we sold out of parking permits this year. Literally, not figuratively, but literally ran out of parking permits because to issue more permits would have been a problem because there was nowhere left to park. If anybody notices, out in the south expansion zone along Beacon, this fall we were scrambling to knock down some old buildings that were out there, move people around so that we could create dirt parking lots in order to meet the needs of our students and faculty and staff to park. In addition to meeting those direct parking needs, our shuttle service has exploded, is about the only way to describe it. This is our Bronco shuttle ridership. There are the three original routes, or two original routes, the blue and the orange, and we've added the new gray that I'll talk about in a moment. If you look at those numbers and you total them up, 7 of the last 12 months, we had over 25,000 riders. Over 20,000 riders in 7 of the last 12 months. To put that into perspective, the city of Boise has long talked about having a downtown circulator program, a mass transit system in the downtown core. According to the national consultants that the city has brought in order to have a viable mass transit program, you must average a ridership of over 20,000 a month. That means effectively we are operating just on our campus alone a mass transit system that would be considered commercially viable in the private sector with over 20,000 riders a month. In addition to that, in order to meet the needs of the academic part of campus and the new computer science building downtown, at the request of the College of Engineering, we instituted another route, the gray route, which runs in the opposite direction of the blue and orange in order to facilitate our students and our staff getting downtown on time for their classes. This is a new route that transportation and parking funded. When we think about transportation and parking, we think a lot about parking, but transportation and parking does so much more than that. These are all of the services that transportation and parking provides on the campus. So every time you are hooking your bike to a bike rack, or you are using the tools that they provide, or the bike shelters, or every time you get on the city bus system and use your campus ID, that's paid for by transportation and parking. And when all of that is put together in the aggregate, transportation and parking is investing $1.4 million a year, not in parking, but they are investing that in all of the non-parking systems, the things that help our pedestrian, the things that help mass transit, and the things that help bicycle access to the campus. But unfortunately, we only pay for all of that on the backs of the people who buy parking permits. There is no other transportation or alternative transportation fee. So when parking is asked to do all of these things to incentivize mass transit and alternative ways to get to the campus, the only mechanism parking has to fund those is its parking permit rates. So these are the proposed rate increases for all of the different parking lots or parking permits on campus. The average when put together is 4.2%. In some cases, the reason there is differentiation in the percentages while they were trying to get to the same because of the dollar amounts. One of the things that parking tries to do every year is make sure that the amount of a permit is divisible by 4. And that's because of the refund system quarterly, so that people who don't have a parking permit anymore can get a refund, so all the parking rates are divisible by 4, which causes a slight difference in the percentage changes. This is the proposed employee rate increase for the year. And in addition to the permits, Transportation and Parking is going to add a new permit this year, which is an evening-only permit that will allow parking after 4 o'clock. Through the evenings, it will be at a lower price point for students or for faculty and staff who only need to come to campus after 4 o'clock. There will be a new permit that just allows that parking. And we are changing some of the rates for events. Several years ago, like I said, it was just a couple of years ago, we used to have a 1 daily rate in the garages, so you didn't have to pay hourly if you were there all day. You could just pay a 1 rate and stay for the whole day. We are reinstituting that because right now if you pay hourly in the garages and you stay all day, you'll pay more than $30. So we're going to a flat 1 time $20 for an all-day rate. We are increasing the amount of a parking citation from $25 to $30, but instituting a new plan that provides for a $5 discount if you pay early. So if you pay your parking ticket immediately and on time, the rate will stay the same, and only if you pay it later will the $5 increase come into effect. And Transportation and Parking is instituting a new bicycle registration program, not mandatory. It won't be required of anyone to do, but it'll be a voluntary program. And if you pay for this, then you'll get your bike registered through the police department and security if it's ever stolen. You'll get use of the bike barns on campus, and you'll get a discount at the Cycle Learning Center. But in addition, you will be issued kind of like a scratch-off card that allows you to use it to park a car on campus 4 days without paying for a permit. So if you do have times throughout the year where you can't ride the bike, you'll get at least 4 days where you can come and park to campus without paying. So that's my presentation on the transportation and parking rate increases, and I'll pause for questions before I go on to dining. Yes?
With the new evening permit, is that going to eliminate the current cross parking rules?
No. It'll be in addition to, question was whether or not the evening permit would eliminate the cross parking rules. And the answer is no, we will continue with cross parking and have an option for an evening permit. Mark?
Kevin, can you go back to the slide of the proposed increases? For students or staff, I guess it really doesn't matter.
Okay.
I know you probably don't have the actual numbers in front of you, but can you give the group a sense of how these rates compare to other metropolitan universities in terms of parking? Are they larger, are they smaller than what another typical school like us would see?
Sure, I don't have that information handy, and I'll look to Sam to either tell me I'm right or wrong, but in general, we are much less expensive in our parking rates than our peer group universities.
Yeah, that's correct. Compared to regional universities, we're more on the lower tier.
Just a quick follow-up, is that okay? Can you give a sense of how low we are? Half of what a normal metropolitan school would charge, or 3/4, or any sense?
We looked at regional universities, and we looked at also city urban universities from the program prioritization schools that were mentioned, and typically I would say we're at least 1/4, maybe more, lower than most of the schools. And also compared to even the city of Boise, we are much less than what they charge downtown for downtown.
So Sam, would it be fair to say that our rates in general are about 75% of comparable rates at other universities? Is that a fair statement?
Close to that, yeah.
Okay. I know we have the data to back that up, but it's not in the presentation.
Okay.
but we can get that if anybody wants it.
Can I also just ask kind of what other options might be considered, or if you all have considered other options aside from just allowing like this to just fall on the backs of permit payers?
For Sienna, thank you. Everybody hear the question. She's asking other alternatives besides raising the parking rates. We have talked about the idea of implementing a transportation fee that funds transportation programs that have mandatory fees, but that again comes back to the mandatory fee. Currently, transportation and parking has a budget line item request to the university for central funding to help fund some of the transportation issues. But at the end of the day, those are really the two funding sources that any group on campus would have, either a mandatory fee or from central budget. And we've discussed both and have a current budget request pending. I think we made that request for $150,000 was the request. Okay, I'll move on to dining rates. All right, dining services. So this is probably my favorite statistic so far this year, and that is from move-in day this last fall, plus 10 days, if you compare those 10 days to last year's 10 days from 2017 versus 2016, the number of dinners served in the BRC, Boise River Cafe, was up 41% in that 10-day period. I think that's critical to understand the pushing that's coming on our dining infrastructure. Given the change in our student demographic, given the number of students we have and the more traditional types of students we have, the same services we used to provide no longer meet the needs. And I think that's illustrated in this next slide because we sold 12.5% more meal plans. So we sold to the students 12.5% more meal plans, but their demand for the services went up by 40%. Anybody in a basic business course will tell you if you are selling 12.5% more of your product, but delivering 40% more of your product, you have a problem. And the problem is right now the demand for our services on campus is outpacing the current business model. So what's happening with a lot of our students, because the BRC is full and there's a lot of people there, and by the way, we have some quality issues that I will address later. This is what's happening in our retail dining. This is the non-BRC dining. This is the students who use their meal card to swipe at Subway to grab a sandwich, or at Chick-fil-A or at Panda. And that utilization over the last 7 years has increased over 600%. When you look at our overall meal utilization and service on campus, this is for last fall, complete semester. So the fall 17 semester versus the fall 16 semester. Again, we sold 12.5% more meal plans, but overall we served, when you aggregate all of our retail plus our traditional residential dining, we're overall serving 36% more food on 12.5% more in sales. So it's creating some pain points in our dining program, some pressure points. If we all want to have better food on campus, if we all want better service on campus, we have to have things change. So part of our increase that we are asking for in the dining rates this year is going to cover CPI, Consumer Price Index, just general cost of inflation. It's also going to eliminate some of the meal periods to make it easier for our students to dine without having to swipe at a certain time. But then we're going to hit some of the pain points. We're going to use some of that money to incentivize better food quality in the Boise River Cafe, to sustain the new food quality in South Fork, to increase our dining hours, to offer more times of services, and to bring in a new employee, which will be a director of dining services, specifically to deal with our relationship with Aramark to improve food quality and service on campus. Speak to that for just a moment. I'm hoping everybody in the room has had a chance in the last few months to eat at South Fork. At South Fork, we specifically went to Aramark and said we want better quality food in South Fork than we are used to in the BRC. So we negotiated an elevated menu to bring better food quality. If everyone in the room thinks that South Fork food is better than some of the other food on campus, that's our goal. To get to that, to change our food quality, to change and impact the student experience so that they have a better dining experience, hopefully that attracts more students, retains more students, lets them have a better experience while they're here, we need to change our revenue model. So that led us to some of our dining rate increases to cover all of those items. The other thing we did this year is we added a third food plan. This last year there were only two. There was the Orange 14 and the All Access Blue plan. We've added a third plan, which is the Basic 14. The Basic 14 plan will stay at the same price as last year's Orange 14 plan. And then you'll see the increases that we are asking for with regard to our meal plans going forward. What this ended up being in terms of our All Access and our Orange 14 plan was essentially about a 7% increase overall in the rate. And that's it, so I'll stand for questions. Mark?
Same kind of question, Kevin. Can you go back to that slide? Can you give me a sense, or give the group a sense, you see the new rates there? And again, I know you don't have the specific numbers in front of you. Can you give a sense on how those rates, those meal rates compare to other institutions?
They're incredibly low.
Again, I know you don't have numbers in front of you, but is it?
If we raised our prices on the order of 20%, we would start hitting the market of similar universities. That's one of our pain points with Aramark. I've heard lots of concerns raised regarding Aramark in my time since this area and I have been working together. And one of the continual points that Aramark brings back is at the price point that you have on your campus, we can't continue to deliver better quality food. And we've seen the other prices that are charged for meal plans on our peer institutions, and we are, I'd say, if I said we were 20% below, that's probably pretty accurate. Sienna?
Can I just ask, so at ASPSU we've been working on a food insecurity project this year, and so I'm just kind of curious how you intend to reach the 40+% of students who are experiencing food insecurity and how a change in this, which is already affecting the reason why students are food insecure, how you kind of plan to combat that issue.
Well, first,
Can you restate this question?
Sure. Sienna's asking a question regarding food insecure students and the students who can't afford to eat and what we're doing about that. The first thing I would like to bring up is that there is nothing in our contract or a relationship with Aramark that prohibits the university from having a food pantry. So there is nothing in that relationship that causes us not to be able to do that. The next part about it is Aramark is getting to the point, because of our insistence in donating its excess food, but because of public health regulations, it's the type of food that has to be delivered and served within a very short period of time. And so right now, Aramark's donation program is going down to the Boise Rescue Mission. So it's the excess food from campus is being served at the rescue mission because they can serve it immediately. It can't go into a pantry for storage later. So I think what we have to do if we want to use our on-campus food service to help address that, we have to figure out the serving issue, because the rescue mission is prepared to serve fairly immediately to its constituents, but we don't have that mechanism on campus. Our food pantry is built around stored food that students can get for later. So in order for campus dining to start addressing that, Sienna, I think we're going to have to deal with how we're going to serve it. And if we can work that out, then we could change that donation to being on campus as opposed to downtown. So that's how I would like to do it, but now we have to work out the logistics of that. Okay, thank you.
So now we'll move on to the information technology fee. And in case you don't know, there are refreshments in the back if you create cookies and water.
Hi, I'm Mark Fitzgerald, Director of Customer Care for the Office of Information Technology, and I've been asked by my Chief Information Officer, Max Davis Johnson, to present on behalf of OIT for you. Thankful to have a few minutes to tell you both about what we've been doing with the technology fee and some of our plans going forward. To give you an idea here, we cover 6 major areas with our technology fee. The first is our support to campus. We call this the zone. And we offer support to students, faculty, and staff in 4 different locations on campus physically, in which people can walk into the ILC to the main level, which is our main flagship location. They can also walk into the Student Union and into the MBEB, the Micro and Business and Economics building. So each end of campus has their own walk-in center. Up on the 3rd floor of the MBEB, we tried something new this year, which is a faculty-centric zone in which, specific for faculty, they can walk in and work with OIT on a number of different systems to improve their delivery of technology to students. We also maintain approximately 700 computers, what we term public access computers. This ranges anywhere from kiosks to classrooms to computerized classrooms to labs and even conference rooms. And these public access computers allow all members of our community to come in and be able to use the technology on campus to improve education. And so these public access computers have a wide range of software that's used in the academic arena. So what professors can show in class, students can immediately walk out into the hallways and begin to use just exactly the way that the faculty have demonstrated it. Then they can go back to a lab or a breakout room and work with their peers and collaborate on how to do things. Alongside of this is also a robust print fleet in which all of the students that pay tech fee have a printing credit that we provide, both color, black and white, and copying. We maintain and support the Blackboard learning environment. And so this is an important tool for all of the students, and it's been accessed by 95% of the students in the past year. And this enhances both our online, but it also enhances our in-person classes. Within the in-person, we support all of the general purpose classrooms on campus and many of the department-owned classrooms as well. They have a unique set of tools, anywhere from classroom capture to clickers to projectors to whiteboards, all the things that we use to collaborate in that educational environment. We also have our wireless, and our wireless infrastructure. When I first arrived 11 years ago, we had 100 access points. That's now over 1,700 access points to be able to provide the need for wireless on campus and how that's been tied into the educational process. And lastly, we also have developed a number of different applications and maintain those student-focused applications anywhere from things like Major Finder to Student Success Dashboards, My Boise State, and My Boise State Mobile. We really have strived in providing technology for the student academic experience. We've aimed to do this in a cost-effective and business-minded approach. Just as a few examples, over the past year, couple of years, we've provided many of these applications in the form of what's called a site license. Now, this has allowed all the departments to use all of the academic software without departments individually having to pay for it. This has actually brought about a tremendous cost savings to the university and allowed more access to these software packages. We've eliminated a number of different contracts that just weren't being fully utilized to help bring down that expense, and we've negotiated with a number of our vendors also to bring down the expense of the individual software contracts. We've done some of the same things with our employees. Each year we sit down and say, what are the needs of the university? What are the needs of the different people that we're serving? And we've rearranged our full-time and part-time employees to match those needs, sometimes going down, sometimes going up, sometimes changing what people do. The point is we continue to measure our effectiveness and our efficiency, and it's to this end we want to talk about a few problems that we've been taking a look at. The first one I want to talk to you about is our wireless infrastructure. Wireless, the reincarnation of wireless that we're using right now was actually designed and built about 7 years ago. And when we did this, this was designed that every student would hopefully one day have a mobile device. Now, every student has some sort of mobile device. On average, students are bringing into the classroom over 3 devices with them for a system that was designed for 1 per person. We're beginning to see that this design needs to be redesigned retooled, and modified to meet the demand. The initial access points that we put in were designed for a slower range of broadband. They were designed for what we call 2.4 megahertz. The newer ones that we've been putting in are for different ranges and allow for increased speed, but all of those original access points are there and need to be replaced and to be maintained. We also want to talk about some of the issues that we've seen with Blackboard. Blackboard actually this past fall semester had several hiccups, and as we looked to what was going on with that, one thing became painfully obvious. Blackboard as a company is focusing on what they call software as a service. That's more commonly known as the cloud. And so Blackboard has put all of their research, their development, and most of their support into supporting their cloud environment. And we as Boise State are currently on an on-premise or self-hosted model. And we're taking a look at the risks involved with maintaining on a self-hosted model. Most of our peers have already moved to the cloud model. In fact, Boise State is now the largest institution left on a self-hosted model. There are also other risks associated with that. Things that affect accessibility are only available within their cloud-hosted model. And so things to bring us into compliance to be able to be accessible to all of our students are not accessible in the way that we're providing Blackboard today. Our third issue is with our classrooms. We have been able to provide a low-cost model for our classrooms. Now, we take a look at this model and really been able to tune this. What we're delivering to campus is half the expense of what our sister institutions in the state are delivering, but actually at a higher level of technology and higher level of quality. So we've really been able to drill down and building a good measurable model. We've been able to cut incidence and failure rates by 90%. We've been able to increase delivery that when there is a failure rate, that people are there within 4 minutes. The problem is that this is only for the general purpose classrooms, which is about half the classrooms on campus. We've been continually trying to grow this by reaching out to colleges and saying, can we bring this model to the classrooms within your area? Many of which are anxious and would like us to do that, but we're not able to do every single classroom at the current rate that we're spending. And as we take a look at that, we'd like to bring in 7 additional classrooms into that fold and continue the march down that we can have all Boise State classrooms to this high level of technology. Finally, also to point out is that we have our maintenance of current operations. Like most businesses and institutions, some costs increase over each year, and no amount of budget maximizing skills were we able to overcome in the past couple of years. We saw a tremendous increase in the overall cost of both our staff and our contracts that we have to many software vendors and hardware vendors. As an example, the annual increases for software contracts normally is about 3%. Over the past year, we've seen 5 to 8% in most of our contracts paid for with student fees. In addition, the Idaho Division of Human Resources is requesting a 3% salary increase that we would like to be able to cover for our employees that support students through the student tech fee. So in the new academic year, OIT is requesting a 9.9% increase in the student technology fee to fund the maintenance of our current operations, both contracts and salaries. We're also looking to start the replacement and redesign of our wireless in our classrooms and our student common areas. We're looking to implement Blackboard as software as a service and moving that Blackboard to the cloud. In addition to moving it to the cloud, we're looking at taking Blackboard and using the accessibility auditing tool known as Ally to make sure that we can provide an online equal education to all of our students and accessible by all. And we're looking to upgrade classroom technology in 7 classrooms in addition to the maintenance and replacement that's ongoing with the 150 classrooms that we already maintain. Pending approval, OIT will commit to the deliverables and projected milestones in the presentation to make sure that we can do all of these within the fiscal year. throughout the proposed technology fee of 9.9% is about $339,000 over academic year 2018. There's a couple of factors to look in to provide some perspective for this. First, in academic year 2017-18, we saw no increase to the technology fee, while we saw maintenance of current operations at a historic annual rate. Also, historic investment in technology has stalled. Without investing in our infrastructure, we see the impacts of deferred maintenance, which is obsolescence, and as things become less reliable, that there are direct impact to the learning of our students. And additionally, the university recognizes that while student headcount continues to increase, the number of students pursuing online-only degrees do not pay into the technology fee. And so we've approached continuing education and extended studies and talked about, as part of the budget process, planning process, that those students pick up half the tab of what it would cost to implement Blackboard and Ally. As one student has recently told us, Wi-Fi is like oxygen. It is just totally needed as part of the student experience. We understand the importance of technology for the current student experience and really want to extract all that we can from the technology that we own and the investments we've made. We want to ensure that everyone, all of our classrooms, have a high level of technology, and that we've informed our fiscal priorities for the academic year 2018-19. We look forward to continuing to serve Boise State and the students of Boise State. What questions can I answer for the committee? Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. We'll move on to intercollegiate athletics and spirit squad.
Well, good afternoon. I'm Kurt Apsey. I'm the Director of Athletics. Just want to say thanks for letting me spend some time with you today. How many current students are in the room right now? Okay, about 10. I wanted to thank more, but I'll start with you 10. There's nobody smiling, just a few. Let's smile and, have some fun here. It's so quiet, I feel like I'm in church. I just, first of all, wanted to say thank you for everything that you do for our department, our student athletes, our staff, this community. What you contribute to the athletic department is roughly about 8% of our entire budget. And it allows us to create and maintain what I hope is a championship culture that we all enjoy year in and year out. So I thank the students of the past, the present, and hopefully future generations of young people that decide to come to Boise State. I also want to apologize. You're going to see a presentation today that is almost exactly the same as it was last year. And the reason for that is that the request of monies of $3.50 is the same. And last year, after we presented to this group, I believe the award to athletics was about 86 cents. So we're not asking for more. In fact, we would be obviously very happy if we could maybe just make up the difference of the original ask last year. And that's important for you to know. We're not asking more than we did last year. We're just asking that the student body at least consider making up to get to that $3.50 that we requested last year. And I think it's important that we talk about that 8% and how critical that is. It's roughly $3.2 to $3.3 million. We use that for a number of different things, and I'll get into how that affects what we do for the student body. I'm also going to show a comparison up here that will show you kind of where we rank, not only in the state, but in the Mountain West Conference. And you can see that we're probably in the bottom half of the amount awarded throughout our conference, and then we've got some numbers there at the bottom in relation to Idaho and Idaho State. You should know, just from from the perspective of numbers that a full-time Boise State student pays roughly about $263 a year to athletics, certainly much less than their counterparts at Idaho at $276 and Idaho State at $279. That's what they're currently paying at those institutions. What do these fees do for us? From a university's perspective, we really believe athletics helps put the university on the national stage. We feel it allows us to recruit and retain quality students, staff, and faculty. And just as a small example, since the Fiesta Bowl 10, 11 years ago, we've increased and improved in a lot of different areas on campus. We feel that we've played a role in that. And you could think about things like donor giving, total enrollment, boosted yearly bachelor's, master's, and doctoral degrees, advanced research. We've grown our foundation, and we've certainly expanded the living graduates that have come through Boise State. We think we provide an arena to showcase student and faculty achievements, and we also think we spur donations throughout the campus. As you all know, there's a 4% fee on donations that goes to our advancement efforts on campus, which I think Laura Simic, our VP for Advancement, and her team do a great job of utilizing those resources that helps contribute to the overall mission of the campus. And athletics feels like we play a small part in that role, very important to us. Our student athletes get out in the community. Our numbers continue to go up, but we spend about 4,000 hours a year out in this community promoting the department, our sports, our programs, our university, our institution, and everything that we're about. So we certainly just don't sit back and say thank you. We try to give back, and I think that our coaches and our student athletes do a great job of that. And then there's the overall brand. The exposure, in addition to hundreds of hours of football coverage on a national stage, every broadcast is accompanied with an opportunity for us to showcase our campus, our staff, our faculty, and our students. Over the last 7 or 8 years, we've been on ESPN nearly 80 to 90 times, which brings that national television audience to campus, and we think that's pretty important. And then maybe just a little bit about what the students get. What is it that you receive for taking part of your tuition and allowing us to enjoy those resources? Students receive tickets to every home sporting event, including our Olympic sports. We give out about 5,000 tickets to football, about 1,800 in basketball. Just so you know, if we were going to go out into our community and sell those tickets, that value is about $3.5 million. And I think that's important for you to know, that you are paying throughout your time here at Boise State for those tickets, but there is a value giving back that allows you to come to the games, and we think that's important. Students also receive a discounted rate on guest tickets, including parent and family weekend, and we also offer discounted recent graduate tickets, allowing those individuals to continue their engagement with the university. We think it's important for us to provide that venue so that we get these people back to campus any way that we can. And we really try to support student groups. One of the more prominent student organizations on campus, the Corral, which I'm sure you're aware of, they're the crazies in the end zone of our basketball games, and on the 20 on the east side of football, make a huge difference for us. We distribute t-shirts to all new students on campus. We host pregame tailgates for students where free food is provided, and we distribute 500 free food vouchers at football games through Aramark and our concession stands on game day. We've provided a student rewards program. If you don't or you haven't seen it, we offer special prizes for students that spend a little bit more time than the average student coming to our athletic contests. And other students groups on campus receive free or discounted use of athletic facilities, and we make donations back to the student activities area across campus to help engage and support student activities. We hope we provide some level of institutional pride, providing engagement opportunities for current students, potential students, and graduates. We put on hundreds of athletic events per year where Bronco fans and supporters can come together. in any of our collegiate areas. Boise State Athletics helps the university capitalize on these settings, we hope, showcasing achievements by students and associates of the university at our most attended events. And the postgraduate engagement, I'll go back to that. We think we provide a venue for people to come back, get them back on campus. Doesn't necessarily have to be what they do inside the stadium, but it gets people back on campus. And we think that's important. The student fee does a lot for us in many of the areas that I just mentioned, but one thing that is very important to understand, we really feel like the students are our biggest partner. They're our biggest sponsor. They help support something that we think is very important to this campus and to this community, and we want to make sure that we continue to do that, and we are certainly always open to providing more, thinking of new ways to make that experience for student on campus a better one once they spend their time here at Boise State. So that's what I have, and I'd be open to any questions if you have them. Please don't hesitate if something's on your mind. Yeah.
I was wondering if you
Jana
had
or Jana? Jana, okay.
I was wondering if you had an estimate on how many students take advantage of the free tickets, primarily to basketball and football.
Yeah. Football depends on the game. This year, probably, Nikki, I don't know, 4,000, 4,500 maybe, somewhere in there. And when we're short in that area for students, we even try to maybe change our discounted or offer a free ticket once in a while, depending on the game. I'll give you a great example. This year against Troy, we probably had about 800 tickets remaining. We made a big push on campus, and the students finally took advantage of that. 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago when we played Oregon, we almost had a mob outside because we couldn't get all of our students in here. So it really depends on who we're playing. Basketball ranges anywhere from 600 to 700 to 1,800 in men's basketball, if that answers your question. Those numbers probably aren't exactly right, but pretty close to it. Yeah.
Another question. So you provide free tickets to the other sports, but there's a really low turnout to those sports. Is there other fee generating ideas that you all have come up with to use the attendance from football and basketball to help supplement those other areas?
That's a good question. Yeah. I want you to do some type of study on that for us and bring some great ideas to the table. We really comb the campus. We work a lot in the areas of student housing, dorms, because obviously those people are on campus, a little easier for them to attend the events. We have a lot of folks that don't stay here, that once they leave, they don't come back. Our student attendance for women's volleyball this year was unbelievable, and last year as well when we won the Mountain West Conference Championship. I don't mean it's 700 or 800, but when you get 200 or 300 in Bronco Gym for a women's volleyball game, it gets pretty loud, and that's been terrific. I think it just depends on who we're playing, what the day is, what time it is. Women's soccer's off campus, so maybe a little bit more difficult to get to, but we're still trying to come up with all the ideas that we can and always listening to try to get them more involved in our Olympic sports. So certainly a challenge for us. Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead.
You want to go? I was just curious, Kurt. You mentioned at the onset of your presentation that you're not asking for anything in addition to what you asked for previous, other than to offset the difference.
Mm-hmm.
Is that correct?
Yeah.
Do you know why you didn't get the full amount last time?
I don't.
Has there been any study, any survey, any inquiry as to why?
I would say no unless I'm unaware of it. To be honest with you, and I don't think this is right or wrong, but I think at the end of the day, we pretty much hear what it is, and if it's nothing or if it's something, we hear the amount. I'd be very curious. I mean, I guess I would say I'm a little surprised that there's only 10 students in this room right now, to be honest with you. I know it's being filmed, so I'm sorry if I've said anything that offended anybody, but at the same time, I'd be very interested in knowing why. And, students these days have so much going on. And I know it's not all about athletics. There's a lot of other things that they have going on outside of the classroom. Some are in student government, some serve on clubs, some have full-time jobs off campus, but haven't been given a reason why. It'd be good to know that information, though. I appreciate that.
So I would add that the State Board of Education limits the amount of tuition fee increases. And so all tuition fee increases have to fit under that cap. And so it's not necessarily a decision based on the merit of each proposal, because it all has to be considered in the context of what we can increase. And so the fact that a fee wasn't fully funded could be on the merits of the fee, or it could be because we really could only increase tuition and fees 3.5% last year.
Thanks, Ken. That's in my notes, actually, and you asked me the question, and I didn't have the answer, so I apologize. You had a question, I think?
Yeah, I did. Thank you, Kurt.
You bet.
I wanted to just kind of get a feel for, I'm looking through some of the details associated with this request and what we're hoping to fund, and it looks like continuing to grow that corral experience, providing additional discounted tickets. I think we heard a question talking about at what rate are those tickets used today? And I guess my question is really around, you know, is there, I'd like to hear from your perspective a case that we made. We've heard about deferred maintenance, and we've heard about buildings that are in desperate need of some upgrades. How this kind of compares with those to say that this is the request you're making will continue to add, you know, the value to that Boise State experience compared to some of the other decisions that we have to make today.
Ours is probably a little different. I go back to the brand part of it as well. I think that's really important, and I think sometimes that's underestimated what a quality, high-level athletic program does for a university and its students. I think it has a lot to do with the recruiting process, and I'm not just talking about student athletes that come here. I think what we're able to do on that blue field or in that arena over there or in some of our other areas helps us recruit students to campus. I think it helps us recruit faculty and staff. I think that has played a big role in the growth of the institution, and so that's probably hard to measure, but allowing us to maintain the championship culture that we have, I think, is important for Boise State, and we take that very seriously in terms of the quality of our coaches, the facilities that we have, the ability that we have to attract the student athletes that make a difference here. I think that brand is something that really it's hard to measure. You know, much more difficult than parking fees or dining services, which are truly very important to the campus. So it's hard to measure. I think just making the student experience the same as it is or even better allows us to help pay for some of those things. This is just a small example, but this student rewards program, if you've been to a basketball game this year, we've given away TVs and iPads and tickets to skiing and, you know, all kinds of different things just to make that experience for the student when they come to a game better. And this is not a huge amount of money in terms of our athletic world, but you know, last year, 86 cents. That may not sound like a lot to some people, but that makes a difference for us. It allows us to keep getting better at hoping that we can make that experience, you know, that much better year in and year out for the kids that are attending our events. So I hope that answers your question. Yeah.
Thank you.
A lot of questions. That's great. Anybody else? Well, thank you for your time. I appreciate it, and it's great to see everybody. Go Broncos.
All right, thanks, Kurt. Now we'll move on to University Health Services.
Oh, okay. It's going to be a minute. Okay, all right. I'm Tara Brooks. I'm the Director of Business Operations at Health Services, and I'm very appreciative of the time that you are giving us today to come and talk with this group about the care that we provide on campus, and also the financial resources that we're looking for in the future. Health services supports students' academic experience by ensuring that they have resources on campus for healthcare. Our services are designed to minimize the impact of illnesses, emotional distress, injuries, and other healthcare problems that may negatively impact a student's academic performance. When looking at the National College Health Assessment, which Boise State participates in every other fall semester, students reported that factors related to mental health, stress, anxiety, depression, as well as upper respiratory problems that would account for things like colds, the flu, strep throat, along with chronic health problems and ADHD, all negatively impacted their academic success here on campus. Again, health services is able to provide care to minimize the impact of these on campus and to ensure that students are able to be successful in their academic pursuits. Now, these services, of course, require financial resources, and so in looking at our financial summary, you'll see that health services receives funding and revenue from two main sources. First being student fees, and the other being care delivery. That would include reimbursement from third-party insurance companies as well as payment from patients for the care that we provide. In looking at some of the expenses that health services has, you will notice that salaries and benefits accounts for a large percentage of that, making up about 75% of our expenses. If we look at all other expenses, excluding salaries and benefits, the administrative service fee accounts for about 25% of those additional expenses. Now, there are other expenses that health services must have in order to operate. That includes things like an electronic medical record. This allows us to capture documentation of our patient visits, bill out claims to third-party insurance companies, and also, most importantly, keep our patient information secure. Medical supplies, which are not reimbursed by insurance companies, adds about $40,000 to $43,000 each year to our expenses, and specialized housekeeping adds another $44,000 on top of that. As you can see, health services is operating at a loss each year. Our surplus balance will allow health services to continue to operate through fiscal year 20, at which point those financial resources will become exhausted and we will be operating completely at a loss. If we look each year at the expenses and the factors that increase our loss, you will notice that there are three main areas, and that is, of course, salaries, which from fiscal year 18 to fiscal year 19 is going to have about $151,000 impact, $11,000 in benefits, and another $17,000 from the increase from 7.5% to 8% in our administrative service fee. We've been able to decrease other expenses, and so the difference between this year to next year is a little over $122,000. Last year, we were granted a $2 increase in our student fees, which we're very appreciative of. After meeting with student groups as well as this body, those resources went towards mental health, specifically for counseling. Unfortunately, the $56,000 that's expected to yield this year will not support a full-time counseling provider. However, health services was creative, and we were able to increase our counseling training and fellowship program. The expansion of that program added about 1.25 FTEs, or the equivalent of 1.25 FTEs to our staff, and allowed for about 65 additional counseling appointments to be available each week. As a result of that, we saw our wait times decrease from 4 to 5 weeks, which we were experiencing last year, closer to 1 to 2 weeks this year. We were also able to expand our group efforts, counseling group efforts. Last year we provided 1 counseling group session, and this year we're able to provide 4 of those. We were also able to increase our ability to get out of our office and come to the students and provide preventive and educational experiences related to mental health. Last year we talked a lot about counseling and their impact on mental health services here on campus. And while they are extremely important, I think it's important to note that mental health is treated by all areas of health services. Nationally, primary care providers are seeing a large percentage of patients that need behavioral health services, and about 43 to 60% of those are actually being treated solely by their primary care provider. At Health Services, we do have an integrated approach where all of our providers, from counseling to medical and wellness, work together to provide care for patients. Over 68% of the patients that are seen in counseling services are also seen by a primary care provider, a psychiatrist, or potentially both for mental health treatment. When we look at our visit summary, you'll see that in fiscal year 17, Health Services saw the largest amount of unique patients at 4,967. If we compare our unique patients to the enrollment numbers published for the main Boise campus, that equates to about 29% of students being seen at Health Services. I'm happy to report that year to date, all patient visits for all areas of Health Services are up. In total, we're up about 9%, with counseling up 12.5% and primary care up 8%. In terms of primary care, they are up 8% this year, but if we look back to 2016, the individual productivity of each of those providers is up actually about 28%. So each individual provider is seeing 28% more patients than they were in 2016. That's due to some staffing changes that we had. We have less providers and also some efficiencies that we were able to gain. But those efficiencies can only carry us so far, and if we continue to see growth in that area, specifically our urgent cares where we're seeing a lot of growth, we are going to have to add providers in order to maintain the quality and make sure that we're providing safe care to those patients. Each patient visit yields about $100 on average, adding everything up, per visit. But not all students are able to pay, and not all students have resources in terms of health insurance. Last year, in order to be inclusive of all students here on campus and make sure they all have the ability to seek services, we implemented a uncompensated care program. That is a program where students can apply to receive care at Health Services for a greatly reduced rate or free. Between September 1st and last Friday, which is February 16th, we had about 42 applications. Most of those students are receiving care at Health Services free of charge. 20 of those applied to receive care at from more than one service area that we have. We approve and look at those on a semesterly basis, and from fall semester to spring semester, about 30% of the patients who had applied reapplied for spring semester. If we look at the cost of that care, we have provided about $23,000 in services to patients and students here on campus that weren't able to afford those services. I think it's important to realize that not all students here on campus have the same socioeconomic background. They don't all have the same financial resources or support networks that other students might have. We have a quote here from one of the students who is receiving this that said, "I can't let my family know I'm being seen, so I'm on my own for paying." We actually hear that from students much more than I anticipated and much more than you may anticipate as well. I think that making sure that students have access to these services on campus is a critical venture for Boise State. But patient visits is not everything that we do all day long. Our providers are also helping to teach the next generation of healthcare providers. We have various students that come through our clinic, from nurse practitioners to psychiatry residents and peer educators in our wellness program. Our clinical staff is providing hands-on learning experiences to students each and every day. Also, our wellness team taught a University Foundation course for the last couple of years, and we anticipate that they will continue to teach that in future years as well. Our counseling staff is also going to be adding some classes on mental health, stress, and other things that will help students deal with those kinds of issues as they come up throughout their experience here. We also provide a large variety of outreach efforts with preventive and educational experiences. Our wellness team was able to provide about 3,500 students events that they participated in this academic year alone. These efforts were largely funded by the College of Health Sciences, Graciously, the dean has provided us financial resources to expand those efforts. Additionally, of course, our counseling outreach has been expanded this year as well, thanks to the additional funding that we received. In 2017, they provided about 54 preventive and educational experiences on campus. And so far, in calendar year of 2018, they have provided about 11 outreach sessions specific to crisis and student deaths that we've had on campus. I, of course, would be remiss to not acknowledge these losses that we've had on campus and the far-reaching impact that it has had on all of our community. Students, faculty, and staff have all been impacted by this, and these 11 outreach sessions certainly are not the last that we at Health Services plan to do to support those members of our community or to address the mental health concerns here on campus. But they do represent what our providers do best, which is supporting our community. Oftentimes at Health Services, we can't share the day-to-day interactions that we have with students because there are privacy and confidentiality regulations that we have to follow. However, this year we do have some statements from students that each of the members on the committee have in front of them. The nature of the treatment that these students received was that they wanted to remain anonymous. However, they were very enthusiastic and supportive of being able to provide some statements related to the services that they've been able to receive at Health Services. This is a quote from one of those. "Having someone care enough about my well-being to provide services, despite my ability to pay, validates that I matter, that my health matters." This is a student who is currently receiving counseling and primary care medical services, and I think that this helps illustrate exactly why we're on campus, and it's why I'm here today. Health Services is able to provide this care to students on campus, but after a couple of years, we're going to run out of the funding that we need to be able to maintain those services. An increase of our student fee of $12.25 per semester would provide us with the additional funding that we need in order to maintain these services and maintain the same level of care that we're able to provide. Without this additional funding, Health Services is going to be in a position where we're going to have to start looking at cutting positions and cutting services that we're providing currently to the students here on campus. I thank you for your time, and if you have any questions, I would be happy to answer those.
I have one. So that $12.25 per semester will allow us to maintain the current level?
Correct.
For how much longer? Is that through the next, I believe it said through 2021, I think we're okay right now. So does this extend that another few years? What does that look like?
Yeah, so the $12.25 would fund Health Services completely for all of next year, which means we would be able to kick that out, that the surplus balance that we have, that would extend for another year. And each year, we anticipate that we'll probably have to come back to this body and ask for an additional increase in that fee. Yes?
I just kind of have a question regarding the mental health services that you all offer. Do you have a referral program for high-demand services like counseling, or are you thinking about any? Just because I know that students have still struggled a lot this year with getting access to counselors.
Mm-hmm. Do you mean a referral program to other places in the community?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we actively do that now. If we are unable to provide the level of care that a student may need, the frequency of care that a student may need, or we can't get them in, which we tried very hard to navigate all of our schedules to get them in as soon as possible. But if we're unable to provide that, we have networks throughout the community, and we would refer a student out to those networks.
And just kind of a follow-up on that one, what would you need, do you think, to be able to hire, like would this $12.25 increase allow you to hire one more counselor, or what do you need in order to do that?
No, the $12.25 will not allow us to hire another counselor. The cost of a counseling provider is about $60,000 for their salary, and if you add benefits onto that, it equates to about $85,000. Any other questions? Thank you very much for your time.
All right, thank you. We'll now move on to student union.
Hi, good afternoon. Is everybody awake? I know you guys have been sitting here. I'm kind of a walk-in talker, so I will try to stay right here. So thanks for having me here today to talk about the student union and potential allowance of a fee increase. Okay, there we go. So as you can see, we've got some great pictures that center around students, which is what the student union does. It provides a location for our students to meet, to be engaged, to eat, to study, to focus. Pretty much all of the center of life can be done at the student union for our students. These are all the areas that we represent within the student union, which is all of these services that students will have throughout their time here at Boise State. It is definitely quite the list overall, and we feel very grateful to have these all in the student union for sure. So you can pick out your favorite service there, or students or services that you use daily. That's for students, staff, and faculty as well. It's a place that you can watch sports in. It's a place where you can have counseling sessions at that we've had there for some of our units. All in all, I like to call it the living room of the campus. Majority of students do live off campus at this time. And what we are able to do at the student union is have a living room for them to come to and get some of the needs that they have met, as well as participate in the wonderful organizations that we do have as a part of our student union. Our increase overall from 2012 has been 5,000, it's up to 5,000 visitors a day. We have 13,000 events, and overall increase for our student organizations, we're up close to 22%. And those requests from student organizations to book events through the sub from 2012. So in 5 years, we've increased the needs of our students, which is great, up to 22%. So, when's the last time you think we've had an increase? Well, we've been very fiscally responsible with our funding, and we're looking at what our 10-year capital plan is and listening to what the students really want out of the student union. The answer to this is fiscal year 11. I'm here to ask about one fee, but dividing that up between 3 particular requests. That way the students and this board can choose what's the most important or all together. Operations fee. That's simply to maintain our facility, continue the growth to meet what our students want out of our facility, bring it up to date, second floor, potentially new carpeting, painting, kind of somewhat to match the first floor. It also will help us make sure that that 3% increase that the state is recommending for state employees, that we're able to pass that on to our staff since we are not funded through guaranteed money through the state overall. So that's our operation fee request. Utilities, I'll add into that, they are increasing, and we do need to cover up all of those costs with our operation fees. And right now, each year over year, we've been taking basically a pay cut and making those happen. And that's our requested for the $4 for full-time students. Audiovisual request. I know that our OIT folks hit on it earlier. Very important across campus overall. What this fee of 50 cents would allow us to do is to work within individual rooms of the student union and basically provide what we are in classrooms the AV that's there in classrooms. So number one, students who go into that would automatically know how to use AV services. The second is organizations would not have to pay the fee for AV. For me, that's really important to our students and organization, not to have to pay for a projector, not to have to pay additional fees to use the student union that they currently have to pay now. We heard this comment in regards to how do I budget for AV, and this is how we do it. We bring it to every organization that's within our facility. All students and clubs, it would definitely be included in their reservation for our rooms. The Game Center. We would like to make the Game Center open and available to all students, full-time students, by paying a $3 fee that would be included in their student fees. This would allow them 100% access to all the different games that we have in our facility. It would also allow us to really look at what our students want and revamping and remodeling the Game Center. Some of it's a little outdated, and some of it we want to really engage our students in regards to what they want. Is it esports? Is it any type of other gaming event? What would they like to see? And we've gotten a lot of requests back overall of just an increased usage that they want to see, but the feeling needs to change in the Game Center. Right now it's kind of a walk through to the other side of the student union and to build an all-inclusive. If given the opportunity to remodel, we definitely it would be at the participation of our students across campus to make sure that we are developing what they want and need. And also it's the family house, right? I'm talking about the living room. This is the fun location to play, meet your friends. Right now we have right across the street our brand new building, Sawtooth and Honors. And they don't have the fun living room that some of the other resident halls across campus do. And we want to make sure our students that live on campus as well as those off campus, that we're really meeting that need of recreation for them overall that's not provided in the rec center. So it's up to this board and it's up to the students of what we want to see in the student union future. This could be one of the items in virtual reality that we could potentially offer through the Game Center. So overall, in summary, what I'm asking for is an increase of $7.50. However, that is divided between the three, not great with a clicker, guys, into the three separate parts and fees overall. This is a 12% increase to our current base of fees right now. So we do understand it is a lot to be asking. We do feel that it does represent all of the students on campus here. Are there any questions? Yes.
So I haven't been to the Game Center quite as much as I should have, but with the 3% increase for the Game Center, would we still have, say, fees to play pool or to play
Nope.
bowling?
Everything would be free.
Okay.
So no bowling fees, no, what do we have, pool, air hockey now, ping pong, darts, and then we have our new game center, video game center in there. That is correct. Anyone else? Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. And I really hope this gets shared with our students and what we're requesting. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name's Sienna George and I'm the ASPCU Student Body President and I'm also the Chair of our Student Activity Fee Advisory Board. So some of those members are here with us today. So essentially what we are requesting is a 3% increase in the student activity fee. So that looks like a $2.99 full-time fee and then a 26-cent fee increase for our part-time and our summer students. And essentially why we're asking for this is in order to build an adequate centralized pool of funding moving forward on an annual basis for student departments or departments that serve our students to be able to access. So any surplus revenue generated by the increase will be held in a central account that then these departments can come and access through the Student Activity Fee Advisory Board for special student-focused initiatives, projects, and to cover any unanticipated revenue shortfall for base budgets year to year. So that's kind of what we're proposing. It's pretty simple, but then just so you all have kind of a year in review, this year SAFAB really focused on reviewing some summary reports from the different departments that currently receive activity fee allocations, and so we just kind of asked a list of different questions, including how they had used the student activity fee, how it was serving students, and then we also asked some questions about how they're soliciting feedback from their students to make sure that those fees are really being used as our students are requesting them be. And so in the future and our remaining months together as a board, we're also going to start to look at kind of a process and a criteria for how these departments will go about accessing those one-time fees. So that's all I have for you. Do you have any questions? Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Dean Kennedy, and I get to work in housing and residence life. Thank you very much for allowing me to share a brief presentation that follows the proposal that you have in front of you. And for those in the room, the slides may be a little bit small, but I want to make sure you had an opportunity to see some of the information I was covering as well. So, and this is for information purposes only. We know that you have a heavy lift with deciding the fees that students are charged on campus. But from an auxiliary perspective, housing and residence life is a potential fee that students who choose to live on campus would need to pay. So first and foremost, as an auxiliary, we don't receive any state funds. So the reason why we have rates that increase, we have operational costs, program improvements, we have debt service, we have 27 buildings on campus, most of which we're still paying off. And then new facilities on campus that may impact our budget. Oops, hey, hello. So for this year, we're looking at these three rates, which I'll cover a little bit more in depth. So an average 4.78% for our residence halls, suites, and townhomes. And then a 3.89 average increase in our apartments. And then our summer conference, which I'll explain a little bit more, but we're looking at a 0.8% increase. I imagine you're saying, wow, that's not as much as we would think. I will share why we're asking for that here in a moment. So in general, as an auxiliary, some of the big things that impact us, the administrative service charge, which has already been mentioned, is going to go up to 8% this year. That has a significant impact. We have an $11 million budget. So salaries and benefits and utilities, we have 45 full-time staff members, and again, 27 buildings that use electricity, gas, water, sewer, etc. Our aging facilities, many of our buildings were constructed really over the past 70 years. So we need to make sure that we have basically funds in our reserves to cover like roof damage, preventative maintenance, which I'll show you here shortly. And then really over time with rate increases, like our ability to raise rates on a regular basis has not kept up with inflation and other larger scale projects. And finally, the Honors College in Sawtooth Hall, which is an amazing facility in the middle of campus. 650 bed spaces, the Honors College is right there, South Fork Market is right in that building. It's a phenomenal building, close to every class on campus. For housing and residence life, there's some impacts. So we're looking at basically $1 million shortfall every year for the rent that Housing and Residence Life is responsible for paying for the students, the student staff and faculty that live in that building, as well as full-time staff. And in addition, we pay for the desk operations. And with the decision to move forward with an agreement with EDR, which is the company that has built the Honors College and Sawtooth Hall, one of the part of that agreement is that we needed to remove Barnes Towers from our inventory, which means it is fiscally irresponsible for us to budget for that. So even though it is currently housing students as overflow housing, we usually get $700 to $1 million depending on the occupancy of that building. But we can't include that in our revenue because hypothetically if the building were to not house any students, we would not have any money coming in from those students. So that's a pretty big financial impact for us. Apologize, really small font. But I wanted to show this. So 2 years ago, prior to the decision to enter into an agreement with EDR, we knew that that was going to happen. The rate structure for us as a department, we worked really closely with university leadership to project out what rate increases would be for the next several years. And those of you looking in your packet, this is not in there. I apologize. I just wanted to show that as a department, we're being fiscally responsible with trying to make sure that we don't go into the red. So when removing towers from our inventory and that $1 million shortfall that we were experiencing or going to experience every year, we needed to make sure that we were increasing rent, which is 94% of how we get revenue, in order to cover that so that we could maintain our buildings and provide roofs over students' heads. So specifically for the next academic year, 2018-2019, some of the big things that are on our radar and in our buildings, we're super excited to be partnering with the university for a new camera project. So the university is moving forward with providing more cameras in common areas as part of our role to increase safety inside the residence halls. We're going to supplement that project with cameras at doors. So while the university is covering camera footage on the exterior of buildings, we'll be able to have camera footage that are inside the building, basically facing the exterior doors, so as people are walking in. And part of that money is to make sure that that system is all one. So if an incident happens in a residence hall, staff member, Boise Police Department can go to public safety and view that footage. Currently that does not exist, but that's a pretty substantial cost for us. As Mark mentioned earlier, wireless on campus. We have to update the wireless infrastructure because as many of you, when you go home, streaming videos, maybe managing multiple devices, students who live on campus are doing that exact same thing. So we need to make sure that we have enough bandwidth for those students to be comfortable where they're living. Also, the university is working with updating the card access system across campus. So with 27 buildings and over 200 entrances, that is a pretty steep financial commitment for us to change out card readers and infrastructure. There's still conversation as to what that's going to look like and what the dollar value is that Housing and Residence Life is going to be responsible for, but we have to plan for that so that we can make sure that our buildings are staying safe and on the main infrastructure for the entire campus. Another thing that we're working on is to look at our housing options, and for those housing options that students are willing to pay more for to match market rates, how can we increase those prices and not increase prices from some of our other housing options that students who are not as economically equipped to be able to provide for. So for example, what we're asking for is to increase some of our rates to market level so that we can keep some of our other rates, particularly Chafee A and B, which are community style residence halls, to keep those prices as low as possible for those students who can't afford the pretty shiny single room in the middle of campus. That's a really important aspect for us. Similar with our apartments, we're working really hard to keep our apartment rates as low as possible so married, family, graduate students can live on campus, close to campus, finish their degrees, and be close to their families. Also for this year, we're looking at outsourcing. Turn is our technical jargon. When we turn over the residence hall, suites, and townhomes from the academic year to the summer for summer conferences. Currently, our current staff is doing the work to clean rooms, update maintenance, that kind of thing. So we're hoping to outsource that to an outside company so that we can actually get more conference groups in over the summertime. And same thing in August, basically decreasing that turn window. More conference groups means more revenue, which means we hopefully won't have to ask for additional increases in student rent over the next couple of years. And then we have some basic, Taylor and Kaiser really haven't been touched for, since they were constructed in 2004. So we need to update some of the building. So hopefully you all know, living on campus is an amazing experience. So a little piece of data, just from the fall semester, the average GPA for students who lived on campus was 3.11. The average for first year students, the average off campus was 2.77. So the staff that we have are providing a phenomenal environment for students to be successful. These rates, this is in your packet, so you can review that. And in your packet also you have the percentage increases for each of the different items, or for each of the different room types. Similar with apartment rates. I'm going to race through these, I'm running out of time. Also in your packet are the conference rates, and the reason why we're not increasing those as much, which is hard because it would be great to have groups that aren't necessarily affiliated with campus pay more for rent. During the summertime. The reason is that we're getting dangerously close to the increase in downtown hotels. Basically, 3 people could stay for a night in a hotel right across the bridge for what it would cost to be in some of our housing options. So what we're doing is making sure that the housing options that we have are still below market in order to increase the likelihood that individuals will come onto campus for their summer conference experience. So our operating budget, which you have in front of you with our proposed rate increase, brings us to our ending liquid fund balance in blue, just over $2.2 million. The Treasury for Boise State believes we should have almost $6 million in reserves. That's if there was a catastrophic failure in one of our buildings. So we're just short of 40% of what the university wants us to have in our reserves. So the fee increase helps cover that too. Ooh, just kidding. So also the last page of your handout has our 5-year financial forecast. What's on the screen is just what we're including with towers. In the document I share with you is if you pull towers out of the equation, we're hoping we can keep towers as overflow housing as long as possible because of the community it provides and the revenue, honestly, that it helps keep our rates as low as possible. And so for comparisons, Mark, to your questions earlier today. So also in your packet are comparisons for both residence hall, suite, townhome rates, and apartments from peer institutions. This is a snapshot of the list that is in your packet. Basically, we are still hovering in the bottom third of our peer and aspirational, as deemed from the Provost's office, in terms of housing rates to live on campus. Weber State, Utah State, and Idaho State are the 3 that consistently fall below us. But to be able to provide the experience that we have, increased GPA close to downtown campus, is pretty awesome that we're able to keep our rates as low as they are. So similar local apartment rates on a monthly basis, living on campus is about $75 cheaper than any place else that says that they provide student housing. So that's, again, important for us for married family and graduate students. I would love to answer any of your questions. Marty.
I'm not sure I understood your impact of towers. If I heard correctly, it sounds like your business model is based on towers not being online, therefore you lose $1 million. So that's part of your equation?
That is correct.
So if it does get rented, if it is online, what will you do with that $1 million windfall.
Yeah, that. So the question for individuals in the room is with towers on or offline, how does that impact our budget model? Currently, because in the agreement with EDR, we can't say that we're housing students in it, so therefore we can't budget on it. That means that we have basically $1 million a year that we're not able to account for. So that money is going to go towards scholarships to increase access for Idaho students coming from high school. And it's also going to our bottom line for our reserves. So on your budget documents, we're looking at usually between $900,000 to $1.1 million over the next several years just to do some preventive maintenance, ongoing maintenance, deferred maintenance. I can share that information with you all if you like. So that's where that windfall would go. Our hope is to be transparent. If we can get to a place where Barnes Towers is part of our inventory, then that money will be part of our basically budget model, which hopefully means that future increases in rent won't have to be so big. Good question. I know it's confusing. Yes.
So are there any emergency housing services for students who aren't able to, like any shelter or anything?
We do not. So the question is are there emergency housing options on campus? Currently there are not, because the money that we get from individual rent goes to cover basically like our operational costs. I know we work really closely with the Dean of Students office and have provided several concessions for students that through either the Dean of Students office, through the health center, need some accommodations early. So working with financial aid, Dean of Students office, and the health center, we've been able to accommodate some students, but we don't have a set emergency student busy plan for somebody who needs housing. At least on a long-term basis, we've also been able to provide like short-term housing for somebody who needs to get out of a bad roommate situation, domestic violence situation. We've been able to accommodate those students and then working closely with the Dean of Students office, health and counseling center to help them get to a better place. We've been able to do that.
Is there a name for that program, or how would students find that program?
The question is, how would students find that program? It's not really a designated program. That student who is in crisis, the counseling center staff, health center staff, Dean of Students office, our staff, if somebody were to come, we would connect resources. Largely the care team would probably be some way and shape involved with that student. And then if emergency housing on a temporary basis is something that we could provide for the success of that student, like we've done it before. Good question. All right, thank you.
All right, well, that concludes our hearing. All the presentations, as well as a recording of the hearing, will be available on vpfa.boisestate.edu. And for those of you on the committee, we'll take a 15-minute break. Thank you.
No, we have a whole other.
Last year,
Not to be the bear.
and they do a lot of